asking the big questions, Does humanity really want to transform and change their ways? And is humanity willing to reconnect in this way? Because that's what you have to do. I get to Morocco and so much more about the dissertation comes to light. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not just about theory. And that's been my whole journey. I've been living the tradition without realizing it until getting into these situations or being pushed into these situations where I'm just like, what do I do? And then I go to the dream or waking state. What do I do? Wind, what do I do? Fire, what do I do? Do I pray? Do I appease you? And they're like, no, just listen to us and then we'll tell you when to go. And it's like, oh my gosh.
So, Alaya, welcome officially to the Dreamworld podcast. It's fun to chat and get to know you and just talk to other dreamers that are in the community and just doing this important work around dreams. So, welcome and thank you. I'm excited to hear about like your journey, how you got into dreams, and what you're working on now. So, I guess take it away, whatever feels right for your introduction.
Thank you so much, Amina. Thank you for the invitation. When I got your first invite for ISD, I went onto your YouTube, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if I can be on this one day. And I never said anything. So when I received the invite, I was just like, yes. So a little bit of background and intro. My name is Alaya Dannu. A lot of out in the legalese world, that's the name that I go by. Amadia is my spiritual or traditional name with regards to tradition goes. And my ancestral mothers gave me that name, gave me those names, all of them really, but I tend to lean more towards Dia or Amadia because it ties in heavily to my work and my dissertation. And I'm currently a doctoral candidate at Fielding Graduate University. And the difference between being a student and candidate is when you reach candidacy status, that means you finish all of your coursework and you're doing your research. Yes. And so the program I'm in is Education Leadership for Change. And my topic is, so the overall topic is the transmission of ancestral memory across experience through dreams. However, my specific research project is really about giving voice to these very old and ancient ancestral mothers and the traditions that they created long, long ago. I'm talking about eons ago. And how that knowledge that they embodied and passed down through dreams can be of use for a lot of our environmental and societal issues. My project initially, I was going to go through my dreams. So I was raised on ancestral dreams. And I guess I'll kind of define what that is, because when I say ancestors, specifically when I say ancestral dreams, I'm talking about these very ancient ancestors, right? But for the general populace that are engaged in lucid dreams or just dream work, in and of itself, an ancestor could be anyone related or anyone that's been monumental to your growth that has transitioned and they become an ancestor, which is, yes, absolutely true. So, but for me in particular, when I say ancestral dreams, I'm talking about the very ancient ones that come to you and reveal knowledge and information. So ancestral dreams, you have no control over them, right? So for me, growing up, I just kind of want to show a book. I have, I think, I don't know, 9 journals, I think at this point. So growing up, my mother we would just have dream circles. And when I turned 17, that's when I started documenting them. And so these dreams actually, it's knowledge that these ancient ancestral mothers have been sharing with me across time and space, right? And they have a lot to do with the tradition that I was born into, that I carry, that my mother, decided to hold firmly to, because she was born into a Christian family, but she was like, nope, I'm going to follow this guidance that I'm getting through my dreams and pass that on to my children. So what I've come to realize throughout the course of my dissertation is that I thought I was going to take some of these dreams and just do a critical analysis of, oh, it's talking about this particular ancient matriarchal civilization, and then go to the scholarship and just kind of show how they're connected, right? And present examples of how we can use ancestral dreams to enhance scholarship. And one day, December 2023, they came to me and said, no, this is what you're going to do. I want this, I want that, I want this. And I was like, yeah, there's no way I can focus on my project and your project at the same time and get anything done. So I switched my whole research question and put their voice at the forefront. And I ended up going to Hawaii, did data collection there because they sent me to the Pacific Islands. They were like, you need to go there. So I did. But after I returned, then they sent me to Pasadena. And I was like, why Pasadena? Oh, LA. Okay. Yeah. I'm doing a documentary about the whole journey, listening to the mothers as they speak. Okay, sure. That makes sense. Filmmakers, LA, right? No, that wasn't the case. The Pasadena, Altadena fires happened, the Palisade fires happened. And for me, it was about listening to these elements, right? But listening to their instruction, listening to their guidance. And I did that. When do I pack? When do I leave? Where do I go? To be able to connect to such primordial elements in that way, and then being guided on where to go, I was like, okay, this is something bigger than just getting a PhD. Like, what's going on here? Ended up at Hermosa Beach to just take a breather. Went to the water, and the water was like, go that way. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, maybe I'm delirious. I don't know. I haven't slept. So all of that to say, by the time the end of January came, I didn't have a place to go back to because, the air quality was bad. I have asthma and I couldn't afford where I was. So many things. And I asked them, I said, where do I need to go? And they're like, go to Morocco. And I'm like, what is in Morocco? What does it have to do with my dissertation? Is it just like a holiday retreat, or is there like something to add value? I get to Morocco and so much more about the dissertation comes to light. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would not have received that information if I'd stayed in the US. And so a lot of what I've been doing lately is redoing my dissertation project. And they tell you your dissertation is going to change constantly. And I'm like, oh no, that's not going to happen. And yes, it is. So it went from listening to the voices of 3 ancient ancestral mothers to realizing that yes, it is listening to them, but the bigger picture is understanding that you're a part of a tradition that was spread across the globe in ancient times, had connections to the Pacific Islands, had connections to, the parts of the US. It's all about this particular tradition. So it's like the tradition of the Queen Mothers. It's an English term that translates different specific cultural terms of different cultures. So it's just a blanket term to use. These Queen Mothers, what they did was they were connected, so connected that when natural phenomena would happen, they would connect with the elements, and the elements would tell them where to go. The elements would tell them when to go, and the elements would tell them how. And so what I'm finding out in this big journey of mine is that, wow, it somewhat is back to my original desire to connect these dreams to these ancient civilizations, but it's also demonstrating that if you want to talk about bringing back a specific type of indigenous knowledge from the past to assist with developing solutions for our contemporary times, you have to live it. It's not just about theory. And that's been my whole journey. I've been living the tradition without realizing it until getting into these situations or being pushed into these situations where I'm just like, what do I do? And then I go to the dream or waking state. What do I do? Wind, what do I do? Fire, what do I do? Do I pray? Do I appease you? And they're like, no, just listen to us and then we'll tell you when to go. And it's like, oh my gosh. So how does that help with developing solutions today? Well, you want to move to a certain land, you want to heal the land. What kind of spiritual space do you have to be in first in order for you to listen? So that you can listen and work with the elements of the land, not just the land, but the other elements around and within that. So there's still going to be a documentary. It's just shifting a little. It's not just the 3 ancient mothers, it's them and their whole tradition, the way they work. And, asking the big questions, does humanity really want to transform and change their ways? And is humanity willing to reconnect in this way? Because that's what you have to do. And how do you do it? It's not possible. Yes, it is. I've been living it. So all that to say, that's the big project that I'm working on. And land holds memory. I would not have understood the deeper levels of this if I had not come to Morocco, right? And Africa's a continent. It's not a country. So to be in Morocco, that also begs the question: what were some of the matriarchal cultures here before it was colonized, right? Before patriarchy came around, like for the land to speak in the ways that it has, it's just been adventure after adventure after adventure. But at the same time, it takes a lot of faith, and trust in your own connection. So if it's not there yet, get to it. It works. It does. It's just, are you willing to do the work? So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got a lot out of what you just said. Like, I had to take notes because there's just so much to unpack here and so much to talk about. I think it's so cool that you really go with the flow of your project and you let it unfold in its own way, because that really makes it what it's about, which is giving these ancestors a platform to, chime in and speak and do this with you. So I think that's so cool. And I love that you've been dream journaling since you were like a teenager, and you've had all this time to develop that side of you and your intuition. That's super cool that you were raised around people that let you foster this connection with your dreams and spirituality. So yeah, that's awesome. The first thing I wanted to ask you, kind of going off of that, is how do you envision like the preservation of using ancestral wisdom like in upcoming generations? How can one ask for guidance? I mean, some people don't resonate with their ancestors, don't have this connection with them really. So what do you think are maybe some tips for people?
Well, the biggest thing is with unpacking the concept of ancestor. Because when you say that, people think, oh my God, my crazy great uncle, right? Or my great great grandfather that was a genocidal sociopath. And it's like, oh, well, okay, those are your human ancestors. They're very human ancestors that did not heal their trauma and just decided to continue this cycle of disconnect. Ancestors, that's the first thing I recommend people to work on. Re-evaluating redefining and relearning, or reevaluating, relearning, and redefining what ancestors, what that means, right? What that means in the totality of the human experience, and what that means for you, and then what it can mean for you. So when you look at the totality of the human experience, look at the indigenous cultures that are still alive, right? And look at the indigenous practices of your bloodlines. So even though you don't like your great great grand uncle, you still need to find out the places your people came from, because they had their practices, pre-patriarchal practices, right? And when you look at the indigenous cultures today, for example, let's go to the Pacific Islands, right? That was how I found out I had ancestral connection. Genetically, I'm connected, but there's no direct blood living ancestor I can name. And that's okay, because it's not just about direct blood lineal ancestry. That's patriarchal, right? So when you decolonize that concept of ancestors, you're looking at animals, you're looking at the land, you're looking at the sea, you're looking at trees, you're looking at plants. Everything is an ancestor. The earth is the greatest ancestor to the human species. Okay, so the first step would be to reevaluate, redefine, relearn what that is, what that concept is, okay? And then if you have people that say, oh, but I'm European descendant, or white American, however you identify. My roots are in Europe, and we don't have that. All we have is Christianity. No, you don't. Christianity is the biggest chop that caused a lot of traumatic disconnect. But before that, your ancestors, your human ancestors, were connected to the land. And then the crows were ancestors. Like I have in my particular lineage, there are 3 animal totems or animal ancestors that have been very vocal in my learning, in my remembering: the crow, the vulture, and the hawk, or the falcon, right? The primary clan sigil is the crow, but those other 2 come in and reveal knowledge, okay? So going back to seeing how your people connected to spirit will help you, right? Looking at how the indigenous today, those that still say, no, I'm indigenous to such and such land, looking at their practices that have been documented and shared, right? And why they're so adamant and so fierce about protecting the land, because the land is an ancestor. The sea is an ancestor. The blue whale is an ancestor to some of the people in the Pacific Islands. The blue whales, you might think, oh, it's just a whale. Yeah, it's a bloody ancestor. That whale helped those people migrate, guided by them. Did you not watch Moana? Okay, just as
Great movie.
a very simple, very simplistic way of demonstrating this is what I'm talking about. Okay, and every time I watch the first Moana, I always cry. I try not to, but I do.
I know, me too. It's so cute.
But I do. But and that's the point that I'm trying to get to. It's you preventing yourself from going beyond your crazy genocidal uncle is causing more harm and re-traumatizing yourself than necessary, right? To heal, you need to release your attachment to that and start with relearning, redefining what that term means. It's so much more than what you've been conditioned to believe in the patriarchal paradigm.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I think this is really an important, start for people that are trying to figure this out and learn about these parts of themselves. I mean, if you go back far enough, we're all connected in some way, and I think that's a really cool thing, really. So yeah, I want to ask you about like your personal dream stories and just your journey. Like you mentioned that your ancestral mothers gave you your name, and how did that come to you? What was that signifying in your journey?
Ooh, so I was, let's see, 2011 was when they came to me and were very adamant, the birth name that your mother gave you, that's not your name. And I'm like, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I started to feel, and I think this is important for people to understand, like I started to feel disconnected from the name that she put on my birth certificate. Even though I went and I did etymology, what's the origins of this name? Spiritually speaking, it ties back into the whole path, but it was a French name, an English name, an Irish derivative of a name. But I started to feel disconnected to that. I started to feel small. I started to feel suffocated. And the thing with names is that names define that which is named, right? Names define things. And the person that does the naming controls or has power over or greatly influences that which is named. It influences your behavior, your identity, everything about you. So names are very powerful. Your ancient ancestors knew that. People tend to have forgotten about that. So in 2011, I was an English teacher in China. And I was going by my middle name at that time because it was easiest for non-English speakers to pronounce. But for me, it felt like the energy from my colonized name was losing its effect. It wasn't having that effect. Like I felt like there's got to be more to me than this, and so I got sick in China because the air is polluted. I was in Shanghai, and I'm G6PD deficient. So what that means is I don't have the enzyme G6PD in my red blood cells like how most people do. And when I encounter certain certain other proteins or oxidative stress, when the red blood cells are supposed to carry nutrients and things to the rest of your body, because I don't have that enzyme, my blood cells burst and they get destroyed faster than my body can remake them if I encounter a trigger. And air pollutants is a trigger. So I was sick the whole time. And the company that I was working for Disney, Disney English, actually. And it was stressful. So you got a stressful living environment and a stressful working environment. Stress is the number one trigger for a lot of illnesses. And so I was so sick that it got to a point where I just didn't understand anything. I was like, what am I doing here? I was having that quarter life crisis, if you will. And the dreams during that time were so intense. I took my 14-day vacation at the same time. And I was flagged as a flight risk because I did that. But I needed that. And during that time, I was remembering a lot of my tradition, a lot of lineage, a lot of why I came back here. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, am I going crazy? Like, what is this? And then they just said, your name has to change. Your name has to define who you are. What we're showing you is who you are. And this old name is not who you are. And so I remember with Alaya, it was weird. I was like, it was just like this pulsating energy in my head. And I was just like, what are you guiding me to? I kept being guided to a lotus. And then I was like looking up the Sanskrit word for it. And it was Kamala. And I was like, no, but that's not, this doesn't feel like, I'm like, tell me what the name is. It has to, and they're like, it represents a realm. Like you need, when your name is spoken, it has to elicit that space of calmness. You have to create that realm of who we are, this particular lineage of the queen mothers. And then it's just weird. I just heard it, Alaya. And I was like, what's Alaya? And I researched it and I was like, oh, do we have Indian ancestry? Because I don't want to walk around with, with the name and not knowing clearly that, yes, indeed, that I did have it. And that wasn't revealed to me until 2 years later. So I was like, okay. But I had already, in 2012, I changed my name. So they pretty much they were telling me the translation of the name, like your name has to represent this realm space. When it's spoken, it has to like almost boom, immediately create that. So when I finally returned back to the US, they just solidified it. And I was like, well, what about my last name? They're like, well, you descend from the mothers. You descend from us. And I was like, the primordial mother, but which name? Like, I don't know which name. Tell me which name. And they said, Dannu. Just use Dannu. Honor your Irish ancestors. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. Okay. But the beautiful thing about that is that that's how the clan mothers, the queen mothers, that is how they were named themselves. They were named after their root mothers, right? Which is a deity. People call it a goddess, but that's not even it because they're ancestors. They're not something that you worship. They're who you are, right? So it started with that when they came to me and was like, oh, nope, you got to change your name. This is why. This is who you are. I got back to the US in 2012, recovered from being sick for so long, changed my name legally, updated my birth certificate. And that for me was like, it felt good because then it felt like walking in the footsteps of my foremothers, right? Which is what they've been grooming me for since I was a child, really, with being tapped in with remembering dreams and always thinking of the world in magic. We say children is just so connected to magic, that it gets beat out of them through education. But my mother, because she herself maintained that connection, that's what they were grooming me for. So that's how it got started for me, knowing when they came to me and said, you got to change your name. And I was like, what? Okay, but to what and to why? Because this is who you are. This is what we need you to do. And as the firstborn in a matriarchal tradition, ancient matriarchal traditions, that's how it was. The firstborn carried that forward. So for me, the confidence in honoring my dreams began when I changed my name. Even though I started documenting at 17, it was in 2011. I don't remember how old I was. Somewhere in my early 30s, I think. That's when I was like, no, this is important because I'm having visions and they're coming to me in dreams and I'm remembering things and I do some research and oh my gosh, that's exactly what they said.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it really seems like it marked like an important transition period for
Yeah.
you. I really see like the name really does hold a lot of power and it really, contributes to who we are. So, yeah, I think that's so cool. What are some other like really impactful, cool, like almost unbelievable dreams that you've had on the journey?
So many.
I know.
Oh my
It's like
gosh.
when people ask me my favorite dream, I'm like, I don't know. There's so many.
I don't have a favorite, but I've got several. Geez. Okay, well, there's one of the dreams that I just went back to revisit. Um, that's directly connected to my dissertation, which is connected to what's happening now. and I want to say that has also helped to clarify why I've struggled so much being so dedicated to dreams, yet the world around me not supporting that. And I think I want to highlight that for people too, because If you're studying lucid dreams, for me, that's easy. And I know for some people, they're like, what do you mean it's easy? It's hard. From where I stand, that's easy because it's where a lot of people are engaged in. It's what neuroscience can study. It's what the Western paradigm can study. So it's easy and it's easier to talk about. It's easy to develop techniques and groups to talk about because that's the entry level into remembering your dreams and gaining confidence in yourself. Because, if you're able to change a dream, that's like, whoa, I can change certain ways of moving in the world if I can do that in my dream. So I do want to preface it by saying, even though I was raised with it, it's like breathing air, it has been difficult. But it has also inspired people that have had to kind of, keep quiet about it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've had dreams like that, but all I find are about lucid dreams. You know what I mean? So just to say, I've had to dance between worlds, dance a little bit in, the general waking state, and then dance in the more mystic state and travel within that because though the world is changing, it has not been easy. Ancestral work isn't supposed to be easy. But I hope that we can get to a point where the world says, yes, this is very important. Let's all start engaging it because it will help us pave the way forward. So this particular dream is called the infrastructure. And the wonderful thing about it is I had this dream in, I think it was 2015. And the thing is, the beautiful thing about these dreams is I would have them, but I won't know when they're relevant. You know what I mean? Like, is this for now or is this for later in the future? Nowadays, I've been able to track it. Like, I've been able to see, okay, this is going to happen in about 2 weeks, or this is like about, 9 days ahead, or, you know what I mean? But this particular dream was 2013, actually, not 2015. So that's what, 12 years ago? January 13th. And I'm not going to read it word for word, simply because parts of it is really graphic and I don't want to traumatize anybody. But so the first part of it talks about an avatar of a system. So think of like a computer system. And so in this dream, I'm starting a job. I have this job in the system, but then sometime later, the job, they cut me loose. There was another company that was taking over, so my presence wasn't necessary. And so one of the mothers, ancient ancestral mother, she comes through in the dream and she's saying, the infrastructure is falling apart. And as she said that, again, this avatar of this particular, like a computer avatar, not the high spiritual being avatar, appeared out of the infrastructure. So it was a program representative, and it was in a male form. And so the mother in the dream, she kind of pulled me aside for me to watch things play out. But of course, I tried to attack it, like how you play a video game. I tried to attack it. That didn't work. So she again pulled me aside and just said to just watch, because she wanted me to watch the nature of this program. Another woman within the same program comes in and she kind of hesitates to go towards the avatar, but then the avatar pulls her to him. they get engaged in intimacy. But the avatar itself was very barbaric and savage, let's just put it that way. And as I watched in horror, the avatar behaved in a way that it felt it was most natural. So it was very destructive. And the woman did not survive the encounter. So as I watched her pass on, I saw her soul kind of just break free from that and walk away freely. And then the dream shifted to where I ended up in this new infrastructure. So I'll read it word for word from there. The woman that gave me notice earlier appeared and transported me to a new infrastructure. She said that she needed me to hide within and amongst the people participating in the new infrastructure. The people there weren't quite aware of the true nature of this new infrastructure and didn't know how to properly use its magic. It was a living infrastructure aware of itself and the people utilizing it, unlike the old one, where men were in control yet destructive. I watched the activities that took place. It was like a translucent highway that led to a massive mainframe structure that was the city, the core of the infrastructure. There were key points along the highway where certain individuals were acting as agents who monitored the flow of traffic, which consisted of people coming in from the old infrastructure into the new one. They were mostly in cryostasis in pods and were transported just beneath the surface of the highway to the city center. Only a very few people were awake and able to travel on the surface. The woman guide asked me to remain in this new infrastructure, yet hidden, to blend in, until it was time to show people how to use the magic of the infrastructure. She suggested I take a job in the role of a caregiver for the time being to blend in. And that's the end of the dream. Well, and that's the thing. So 2013, of course, I'm like, whoa, like, what is this dream talking about? 2013, where was I? I didn't have a job anymore, and I was with my mom, and we were both kind of floating in limbo, trying to figure out what we both wanted to do. But the avatar in the old infrastructure, that's our society today. That is exactly what it is. And for the woman that, well, me in trying to attack it, that just, and it not working, as if I'm playing a video game and it's not working. That, I would say, were my efforts at trying to attack the main system, and it's not working. So me trying to go in about talking about the dreams in the ways I've been talking about in the past 12 years now, a direct approach didn't work, hasn't worked, still isn't working. So, so just seeing that. And then of course the woman that, kind of didn't know how to interact with the system, and then the way that it eventually unalived her. You look at how the infrastructure treats women, right? And at how, with her trying to be engaged with it, any attempts at trying to, at its level, is not, it doesn't help her existence, because in the end, she ends up passing on. And so in order to be able to be free from that, you can't stay within that system. You have to move beyond that system. And me being told, look, you need to be in this in the new infrastructure. I remember seeing it. It's just like these translucent ways of moving and connecting with the energy of it. Like, it was very conscious. And just recalling my experience at the Eaton Canyon Fire in Pasadena, it's like, yeah, connecting with the elements in such a way that you're able to know where to be, when to be there, and how to be there, that's moving from the old into the new, right? And so when seeing people being moved in cryostasis, that's the symbolism of it. There are a lot of people still asleep, being pushed into this new system, right? They're still asleep. And there are these beings watching, I guess higher energies watching who's coming through, who's capable of engaging this new infrastructure when it comes to be, but engaging its magic in the appropriate way, engaging its power and its energy in the appropriate way. And then for the woman guide to tell me, she's like, well, you need to take a caregiver role until it's time for you to show people how to utilize this magic in this new space. And the caregiving role, the queen mothers usually they take that role. So for the life of me, it took me 12 years to figure that out, right? Queen mothers, they're cultural custodians, they're wisdom keepers. Um, they understand the nuance of and the importance of cultural continuity. They're the ones that perpetuate culture. They're the ones that perpetuate the knowledge, but it's the knowledge that requires you to be connected, requires you to communicate, commune with the elements. And when I say elements, it's not just air, fire, water, earth, and ether. It's all aspects of it, right? Both the spirit realm and the manifest realm, they exist in the same space. And for queen mothers to act as caregivers, they're the ones that help to support people in the process of understanding. So of course, when she said, now I understand it, seeing as coming back to the continent, and it's like, yeah, no, it's the queen mother tradition you're supposed to be talking about, helping people to relearn. I didn't know that 12 years ago, right? So when people start to awaken out of cryostasis, that's where I'm supposed to be to help them figure out, well, how do we even do this? Okay, here's how you reconnect. Here's how you don't. You know what I mean? So I totally want to will put this dream in the dissertation. I just haven't figured out how to weave it in yet because I have to different parts. But that's going back to this dream recently has helped me to just release all of the frustration I've had with trying to create programs and communities around using dreams to help people understand where they're going or where they come from, because that was me fighting the system head on instead of taking a more caregiver type, be within the system but not of it, so that's that dream.
That's cool. I love how like the dream planted the seed over a decade ago and you've just been figuring it out this whole time. That's really cool. And there's the imagery there, like it could be a whole movie plot, honestly. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it totally could. And that's part of what I want to do. Actually, that's what the mothers, they were like, yeah, you're gonna make documentaries of the dreams. And I'm like, when? I'm like, when?
The right
How?
time it'll happen somehow.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's like so that kind of is a cool bridge to this, question I was going to ask you about. Like it's no secret that today's society and leadership structure is very much rooted in patriarchal systems, right?
Mhm.
And this matriarchal leadership really brings like this wisdom, this deep listening and healing and emotional intelligence, that could really create stronger communities. So how do you think like matriarchal wisdom is going to integrate nowadays into like a different approach? Like what shifts can we see if it's like embraced by society?
Yeah, first is clarifying what a matriarchy is and what it's not. Because a lot of people, scholars even, when they hear matriarchy, they think in their dualistic mind, it's the opposite of patriarchy. women are in control over men. Nobody has rights. Men will lose their rights. You have no idea how many conversations I've seen and how many conversations I've been in, but never, I don't get into arguments about it, because the bottom line is, if you have not done an honest inquiry into the oldest form of matriarchy and the cultures that emerge from it, then you can't say that it's the exact opposite of patriarchy. And if you don't know what to look for, then you can't say that you know what matriarchy is, because you don't. And if you've chosen not to speak to people raised in matriarchal, not just matrilineal, matriarchal traditions, then you have no say whatsoever. So what is a matriarchy? Matri means mother. It's the root word for matriarchal, matri, Latin for mother. Archi, Greek. Now we're going to go back to the very earliest. See, this is why etymology in education is wonderful. Okay. Etymology, yes, it tracks the, how words have been used across time. We want to get to the very first use of that word. Archi means beginning. Oh, wow, mother beginning. Mother origin. Guess what? We all come from mothers, right? So now that we've got that out of the way, I highly suggest people look into that. And there is a book. I don't have it with me here. It's in my room, but there is a book that I recommend people invest in and read about it, because she's a German scholar, but she did that. She did the work. She went and researched and defined it and called out all these scholars like, you're not working hard enough because you are too attached to patriarchy. So ancient matriarchies, and we're going to look at the oldest one, the continent that we now call Africa. Okay. Some of the oldest matriarchies in the world were co-stewardships. There wasn't just the clan mother that gave birth to a people, gave birth to a nation, gave birth to an identity. She had the wisdom and the knowledge from the other side, because she could give birth, to show people how to maintain connection, how to work together, right? Mothers, originally, in its original sense, mothers are nurturing. Mothers ensure everybody gets fed. Mothers ensure everybody gets taken care of. Mothers ensure everybody is listened to, not just the physical people, but the spirit people as well, right? Because without your connection to spirit, nothing can happen in the manifest realm. And that is how you come into the world. Spirit first, physical second. So what can we learn from matriarchies? We learn partnership, a balance in partnership, right? The mothers in the past, and I'm going to use the Akans as an example. So the Akans are a people that settled in the West, in West Africa. The particular branch family, one of the original seven that I'm connected to, their origins are rooted in the Nile Valley. So to use them as an example, because it's a part of my ancestry, the mothers not ruled, but the mothers worked with a male counterpart. And sometimes it could be her own son or it could be her nephew, right? And she is the one that placed him in that position, right? And it was usually because she herself was descended from the root ancestress, a deity. She herself was an embodiment of that. So it's an embodiment of divinity that has knowledge on how to maintain balance, how the physical realm can maintain its balance with the spirit realm. She has that knowledge. She works on all of the things spiritually speaking. She doesn't have time really to maintain other relations in the physical space. So she delegates. She delegates that to her sons or her nephews. That's within her matriline, because again, that embodiment of divinity has the knowledge of how to keep balance. So he took care of all things male related, right? Because mothers will know things up to a certain point, and it's like, okay, well, that's your male thing. I don't know all the things about that, but your fathers and your uncles will. And she took care of all things related to women, as well as continue to be a guide. Because one of the things the mothers have said to me is the minds of men are disconnected from the wombs of their mothers. So their knowledge and wisdom is constantly being reinforced by her, right? Yes, he's on the stool, but at the same time, she's guiding him to ensure that he does so in balance, right? And there are some occasions where she had to hold both roles, and she has the blessings to do so. But she could hold both roles, giving birth, caring for, making sure women understood themselves as women and the potential, right? And then also guiding, her male relatives. And if there was no worthy male relative, because of character is important, she did both. Of course, she delegated, but she did both. So what can we learn? What it means to nurture, not from your ego, but for the sake of balance, equilibrium, and harmony. How do we work together as people and with the spirit realm, the elements, the land, right? Knowing that if there's discord within yourself and within your relationships to people, there's going to be discord in relationship to the land, to the elements, right? Is your mind connected to that source origin, to the womb of your mother? Not just your birth mother, but your divine mother. Do you have that connection so that she can continue to nourish you? And that's what it's about. You know those images of the Madonna and child, the mother and child constantly suckling? That's matriarchy right there. It's nurturing. It's nurturing. Can you constantly and consistently nurture yourself, your relationships between people, and your relationships to the animal and plant realm and spirit realm? Can you do that? That's necessary. That's what the call back. That's what we're being called back to. It's not go back into the past. Not I mean, yeah, there's some things that you're gonna have to let go of, but it's not going back into an oppressive past. It's going back to the past to receive the knowledge that we need to build a better future, right? How do we utilize that now? Learning how to be in right relationship, right? In the ways that a mother nurtures her child. I think that is valuable to all of us today.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, that maternal energy is like, it's a portal. It's interdimensional energy that has a lot of power that applies to everybody. Like you said, we all come from mothers, and yeah, I think it's important. I think although this is, not necessarily scientific interest right now. I think that it's bridging science, spirituality, art, all of these different perspectives. So yeah, I think it's really cool. And it's important stuff to talk about.
It is. And I think a part of the process of healing for a lot of people too is when I talk about the mothers or matriarchy, and I try to ease their anxiety, and they hear that, they're like, I didn't have a good relationship to my mother. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's valid. That's totally valid. But I'm not talking about your mother. I'm talking about a concept. I'm talking about a consciousness. There is a consciousness that is of the mothers, that is mothering. When a woman becomes a mother, she changes. There's so much going on. There's a whole biochemical transformation. neurological shift. Like she becomes something else. She's no longer just a woman. You understand? So it's taking the concept of mothering, every nuanced layer of it, and applying it to a global scale. It's not just about women making babies. No, 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 no. See, that's very patriarchal. That's patriarchal motherhood. And I'm not talking about patriarchal motherhood. I'm talking about the motherhood of matriarchy, which is actually some of what the mothers have said to me. It's the motherhood of matriarchy. That's what we're talking about. Matriarchal motherhood, not patriarchal motherhood. Because to deny motherhood and patriarchy is not good. So at least I'm acknowledging that, yes, there are people that have really bad relationships to their mothers, but I'm talking about a consciousness. And if you're talking about elevating consciousness, all right, let's get to that higher space of being, of understanding the importance of our interconnectedness. If you understand the process of becoming a mother, then you'll understand the process of creating a new world, of creating a community. Because it's not just about creating it, it's about protecting it, it's about nurturing it. And yeah, even though people will say, well, men are the protectors, well, so too are women. Women, you know what I mean? Like it's both and. So how can we work together on the principles of nourished mothering, not patriarchal mothering, okay? Because there is a difference. And being able to connect back to that ancient knowledge, bridging it for today, is so very important. But you have to do the healing work. That's the other thing. You can't create from a place of trauma. You can't create from a place of disconnect. You can't create the new that you're hoping for if you haven't done the healing work behind it. Because everything that you create from wherever you are is going to contain energy from that space. So if you're not in a space where you understand these higher concepts of connection, anything you create, policy, lifestyle, ideology, identity, society, it's going to have elements of your psyche, of the disconnect in your spirit. And that's not what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to do both, heal and create from that place of healing.
Yeah, that's true. I think that whole collaborative aspect of it is really important. And I hope that people see that and really, take this to heart, and start, looking within and applying that into society. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about, and also, I don't know if you had any other dreams to share, but I would love to hear them. But I was also curious, like, are you a lucid dreamer at all? And how does like lucidity kind of play into your dreams?
Well, I mean, with all of my dreams, I am lucid. So it's just, for me, it's like before I go to bed, it's like an automatic thing. I know I'm going to dream tonight. Like I know, but I'm curious as to what I'll be
It's
dreaming
cool.
about. Or if I'm really looking for information or knowledge, I'll put a prayer out there. And I'm like, look, I know you guys take 3 days at least to give me a response, but I'd like for you to come and help me sort this out, depending on the urgency. It could be that night, it could be 3 nights later. Have I had lucid dreams, like dreams where I can control and kind of shift and change? Yes, I've had those. And those are fun because then it helps me to see I've solved this problem within myself, right? I'm no longer confrontational. I know how to deal with conflict now because I turned around and I faced the crazy person. But for me, it's a constant. From the moment I wake up, I'm already preparing for my dream time when I go to sleep. I'm already preparing
Yeah.
for it. So yeah, it's something that's always on.
That's cool. Yeah, same. That's why I'm always curious. Like, that awareness, like people that work a lot with their dreams, they tend to have more dream awareness. Even if you can't
Mhm.
always control the dream, you can still like be lucidly aware, same with waking life. But yeah, that's interesting. I feel like some people are lucid in most or all of their dreams, which I think is an interesting concept. So yeah, and yeah, I know you said earlier, like lucid dreaming, it's like the trendy thing that everyone's researching, and I think it's really cool. But I think all these things they come together and they connect somehow, and they open up all these different topics about dreams and wisdom that and consciousness. So hopefully one thing leads to another, and people go deeper into the rabbit hole.
That's what I want people go deeper. Like we have to go deeper. Like it's great to be on the surface and to ride that wave. Like I go to the beach here and there's people surfing on the waves. That's great. But have you thought about taking a camera and just kind of getting in the water and then watching the waves? Ooh, have you thought about that? You know what I mean? Just to
Yeah,
give a fun
different experience.
metaphor. Yeah. Um, Diving deeper into the dream space helps you to dive deeper into your spirit space, into your connection to yourself, which then kind of triggers your ancestors, not just your crazy grandpa, but the ones in the distant past. Oh, look, they reached that level. Now let's go say something. Now let's go introduce ourselves, because everything's a choice. Everybody has that choice. And there are consequences to all of your choices. Be they good or bad, that's a value judgment for you to determine, to discern. But if you go deeper with the intention of connecting, and that's the other thing, I want to go deeper so I can heal and connect, because I want to know the ancestors, the plants, the trees, the flowers, the animals, the elements, and be clear with that. Like, I want to know the ones I'm connected to and the legacy that I'm supposed to be bringing forward if I get to that level, as opposed to, well, I don't want to go that far because I had a crazy grand uncle and boom, 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 there's the block, right? So to be able to go deeper, you're able to see further, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also understanding, why your crazy uncle, grandpa, whatever is the way he is, what traumas, memories, and, experiences were passed on beyond generations. Like it really is about, understanding it from that compassionate perspective and just going deeper than just your small circle and immediate, ancestors.
Well, that also helps to reinforce the we're all connected thing. If you can understand why this person repeated a trauma, oh, just you becoming aware of that's healing, because there's an awareness. Now that energy can flow through. You becoming aware of it and realizing that's been showing up in my family. I don't want that to show up anymore. You saying that is like, we're not going to do these things anymore. So it takes courage, but you got to do it, because I don't want to be in another new space or new society where people are still carrying on their stuff. No. No, 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 no. Get out of your cryostasis, please.
It's
So,
happening, I think, slowly but surely.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, is there anything else that you thought of sharing or bringing today that we hadn't touched on?
Yeah, so this is a little fun tidbit that I that will also go into my dissertation in a much, much broader sense, at how in our connection you could be on the other side of the world in a different culture, but both could dream very similar things, very specific type of knowledge, right? And then just kind of demonstrate that even though you may not be ancestrally direct bloodline connected to somebody, both of you can dream the same book. pretty much, right? And then depending on your conditioning, express it slightly different, but definitely it's in there. So there's this late priestess of the Afa tradition. It's a West African tradition. Her name was Mama Zope. And I don't know if you've heard of her, but she'd written the Sibyls, right? And she utilized some of her ancestral knowledge to write the book. What I find fascinating about this is that there's this short paragraph that talks about cycles. And I know everybody talks about cycles. There's seasonal cycles, there's life cycles, earth cycles, sun cycles, cosmic cycles, right? A macrocosmic to a microcosmic expression and experience of cycles. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is if you're close to the equator, your seasonal cycles don't look the same as you get further away. Now, the furthest away you are at the poles, the only similarities between the poles and the equator is that cold seasonal cycle of just wind and snow versus a warm seasonal cycle of heat and rain, right? But it's not 4 seasons. And most of us grew up in 4 seasons. We automatically would think it's 4 seasons everywhere else, but no, that's not the case, right? So it also depends on your position, where you're located, right? So when we talk about cycles, we also need to understand our position. What cycle are we talking about, and what's the viewpoint, So on page 23, she's talking about these cycles of the Sibyls, which are oracular women of oracles, being born, reincarnated onto the planet. So I'll read a short excerpt of that, and then I'll read a dream that says something very similar, if off by 1 to 1,000 years. So she says, the priestesshood of the Sibyls were even more conspicuous. They were a part of the divine cycle of procreation, preservation, death, and renewal, which is rebirth, which was believed to take place every 600 or 6,000 years. Okay, when did she write this? She published this book in 2007, but I bought this book in 2020. This is one of my other journals. This is April 9th, 2011. So I was in China at this time. And this was a waking vision, right? As I stepped out of the shower, an impression came to me. I saw a woman dressed in all white, sitting in a chair for a photo, and she was surrounded by women, her daughters, and other women. What came to me in addition to this flash of insight was that she is an ancestor and a mother incarnate. This impression immediately took me to my maternal line. And then it came. Every 5 generations, a mother is born or becomes incarnate. So 5 generations, if you think about it in a human sense, it could be 100 years, who knows? But Mama Zogbe said 600 or 6,000 years. For me, it was revealed a mother incarnate, like as I said before, a clan mother is the embodiment of one of the deified ancestral mothers, a divinity. And that's what the Sibyls represented, an embodiment of this particular divinity. And every 600 or 6,000 years, according to her knowledge that was passed down to her, they reincarnate with particular knowledge. And it could be during a time of preservation or a time of rebirth or a time of procreation. And we're in the time of rebirth right now. And so there are a couple of other dreams that I've had that have expanded upon it. So every 5 generations, is that 5 human generations, or is that 5, however many generations in the divine time, right? That a mother is born. And so it's the clan mother, the embodiment of the deified, of the deity that represents that particular lineage. So, when it comes to me when it came to me in 2011, of course, I was just like, what are they talking about? Every 5 human generations? No, that's not the case. It's a clan mother is born again, and she brings with her this matriarchal knowledge, the motherhood of matriarchy, to assist with the shift that is happening. So if I'm going to calculate every 5 generations, I'm going to look at the yugas, right? So you've got 4 yugas. So the 5th, you know what I mean? So if you're going to count each yuga as a generation, so every 5 generations, so at every 5th turn would bring us back to the beginning, bring us back to the golden age, if you will, golden age, which would be the age of connection. So just to kind of give people like, hey, there are some things that I've been dreaming of that other people have been talking about. Like, hello, this is how we should remember our ancient matriarchal past. We need these dreams. We need these ancestral dreams to help fill in the gaps. And also the people that live it. It's not just theoretical knowledge. We need to also live it, so that we can show people how to connect, so that we can help people with reconnecting.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because the cycles are relative, and time and space is kind of, it's an illusion, really. Like, we have our own time and space, but beyond our physical realm, it's kind of relative to the position you're in. So I think that's a really important way to look at it.
Yeah, like there's like I've seen a lot of conversation around women and their cycles, and they're like, if your cycle's not this amount of days and there's something wrong and it's only supposed to be once a month, and my cycles were never like that. I've tracked my cycles for about 5 years, and like literally tracking them to try to figure out, why are my cycles just like this and they come twice a month at certain times of the year? I don't understand. It's a cycle. There's a specific cycle in my tradition, and it's like that for a very specific reason. So yes, your cycles are according to whatever energies you're connected to. Just because you are defined as a woman doesn't mean your cycle is going to be like every single woman. Women are not monoliths. There are some baseline basics and similarities. Not even twins are the same. So women are not going to be exactly the same. What is that energetic connection? Like how I like to tell people, what's your root? Womb, lineage, mother. What is her knowledge? Because her knowledge is going to be different from my knowledge. It's the same with my mom. She's my mom, but her root lineage mother is different from mine, even though she's my mother, right? And so people are like, how can that be? For whatever reason, we decided to come together for a specific reason, but different root lineages. And there are some families where it's just the same, the same group, different cycles, different times. So understanding your positioning and understanding pre-patriarchal references and stories, the knowledge before then, that's so very important. So you don't make the mistake of boxing yourself and everyone in boxes. Very patriarchal structures. It's okay to have a structure, but is that structure fluid? Is that structure, does it bend like bamboo? Strong but bendy, So being aware of that is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely have a lot to think about now. And yeah, I think as we evolve and we age, our identity changes and we learn more about ourselves. So it's important not to be so, rigid. I think that's a really good message.
Yeah, well, yeah, that and making it into whatever societal system that we have. How do we do it? That's my biggest curiosity. Is like, how is this going to happen? And I guess it'll just unfold in the way it is, and we'll be guided by dreams, and I'll just be like, all right.
Yeah. Well, you're doing the work, you're doing your part, as am I. And so I really admire that. I think it's cool, and I think it'll reach people. Maybe it's hard to see day by day the big changes, but on a big scale, things are happening. I see it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. It's being able to see it, and it's so hard. You're not really seeing it real time, but
Yeah.
then later down the line, you're like, oh my goodness, it was happening all this time, and I just didn't see it. So yeah, having faith.
Yeah, I
That's
think we're in the early stages of a huge paradigm shift. So,
very much so.
yeah, that's
Very
cool.
much so.
Scary but cool.
Exactly. Which is, it makes the resistance to change understandable because it's scary. But without it, it's just stagnation and nothing thrives. And if the earth itself is shifting and saying, no, I want to thrive, I think everything on the earth has to shift as well. I liken it to, I, I call it the guest house metaphor. I don't know if I shared it with you.
I don't think
Um,
so.
Imagine being invited to somebody's estate. So you've got this beautiful house, and then you've got smaller guest houses. You've got these beautiful gardens and some woods in the back, and some guests come over. You're invited to stay for a short period of time, and first you overstay your welcome, and the owner of the person that lives there is like, okay, well, maybe we can work something out, and you contribute a little bit, and then all of a sudden you start knocking things over. You start demanding your host to do things for you, or you just take it and do it yourself, and the host keeps asking you, can you please stop? Can you please change your ways? And the host turns to your friends that you brought, and some of your friends are like, no, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to do what we want. We're going to change the color of the house. We're going to do some renovation. We're going to go outside and poop in your garden, and do whatever we want to do. And you have some other people that are like, no, we should actually listen, because this is not our house. This is not our house. And you get to a point where, you know as the owner of the house, you get to a point where you have to decide, well, am I going to kick you out? Or are you going to change if you really want to be here? And if people, your guests are just still being rowdy, then you have every right to have them removed from your property. You have every right to have them removed from your space. So when I tell people that, I'm like, what would you do? And they're like, yeah, no, they would have to go. The bottom line, like, you're out. I get you out. Um, so then I said, okay, now flip it. It's the earth, and you're the guest. It's the earth, and humanity's the guest. Now, what do you think should happen? And they're like, I see what you did there. I'm like, yeah, of course. But really, what do you think the earth should do? Right? Because when you really look at it, humanity needs the earth. The earth doesn't need humanity. And a great example that we got was 2020.
Yeah.
When the world stood still for a few months, what happened?
Yeah. Big reality check.
Exactly. So come on, you need to shift gears at the speed of the earth, because again, the earth is going to do what it does. Is humanity willing to move with it or not?
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. Hopefully we can see the impact that we're having and treat our oldest ancestor, the earth, oldest physical ancestor, treat it a little bit better than we've been, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, because then, humanity's going to get a lot of eviction notices. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, this has been awesome. A lot to think about. Where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more and find out more about what you do?
Ooh, okay, so I have a website, houseofama.org. And it's house of AMMA.org, all together, no hyphens. Um, I'm currently redoing a lot on the website, but I have a link section, and there are a couple of YouTube videos that I've put up, and I'll be putting up more, and some other I think a couple of other podcasts that I had put up. So you can read, you can watch. I'm on Threads and Instagram, same handle, House of Ama, and I I talk a lot about the research and the things that I'm doing on Threads, more so than Instagram. And if you wanted to connect directly, just hit the contact me and send me an email, and hopefully, we can connect. I'm updating the website to put the what's the Calendly. There you go, the calendar thing.
Cool.
So it's just I'm doing, because I'm doing so much. It's like as I rewrite my dissertation, then I jump onto the website and do edits. But for now, you can find me on social media, a little bit on YouTube. I'm getting back up to it.
Cool.
Just send me an email and we can take it from
Sweet.
there.
Yeah, I'll include all your links. And yeah, I do everything too. So I know it's hard to juggle all the things and social media. Like it's
Yeah.
so annoying, but yeah, but part of it. Yeah. So that's cool. And when you finish your dissertation, will you planning on publish it, or people think we can read it, or
Oh
yeah.
yes. So it will be published. I want
Yay.
the mothers want people to read it and watch it, the documentary as well. It's not going to be behind a paywall. It'll be up on YouTube and what other Vimeo as well, as best I can, so that it can stay accessible, because that was the whole point. I didn't even think about doing a documentary. The mothers said do a documentary, and with some of the footage that I've got, you're like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. So yes, I thought I'd be finished with everything this semester, but since I've been here, I'm just like, I need one more semester to just put it all together. So definitely by end of summer, you'll see it, me announce it. I'm finally done, because
Yay.
I wanna finally get it on with. But yeah, people have been asking, can we read it? Is it gonna be public? Yes. This is not the behind the paywall for academics only. No, this is for both. This is for the whole world.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes. No gatekeeping over here.
No gatekeeping, not especially when we need the knowledge and the know-how. Like, how do we do it? Like, what people that are doing it but struggling to for that validation. Am I doing it right? Like, is it supposed to look like this? But it's like, I've had people come to me and say, I listened to that podcast and it validates what I was feeling, but I didn't have any reference points for it. I didn't know what to do with it. So that's what the dissertation aims to do, to be that point of reference and an example.
Awesome. I'm excited for it. Well, I will definitely update the episode when it comes out with all the links, but
Mhm.
for now people can just follow along in your journey, and yeah, I'll let you know once this gets published in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited.
Me too. Thanks for chatting. It's been really nice just, getting to know you a little bit more personally.
Thank you for the invitation. I try to get on these as best as many as I can, as best as I can, time permitting, because again, with that dream, me trying to do it head on by myself, right? Um, but when you're talking about something that the global majority doesn't necessarily engage in, right? Where a lot of people's most of the world's mind, people's minds have been so colonized that they've been so disconnected from deeper engagement of dream work. It's hard to have that conversation because then people think you're talking about lucid dreams, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Well, where's the space? And it's like, well, you got to create it. And you try to create that space and you meet a lot of resistance. Me trying to do it by myself, it doesn't work. So
Yeah, definitely. It takes a whole collaboration, a whole society to really, see it through. So
it does. It does.
awesome.